All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for your time. And look, really looking forward to today's webinar, the race to deliver L4 and L5 autonomous vehicles. Look, today's presenter, Dick Lee, is from Denver, USA, but originally a Brit. Been there a few years now. We've done a couple of autonomous vehicle webinars, but this one is going to be interesting, being about 6 to 8 months. We'll see what the progression is in that time, and really, as always, everyone, there's a Q&A. Please send your questions through. Dick briefed me that there's about 3 or 4 key sections in today's presentation, so feel free to ask questions after those sections or throughout, and use your chat function to tell amongst yourselves. So on that note, look, I'll pass over to you, Dick, and thanks for your time, mate.
Ross, thank you very much. It's great to be on, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day down there in Brisbane. I'm going to talk about the race to deliver L4 and L5 autonomous vehicles. And now I can't move my screen. Why is that?
There you go.
Oh, Ross, I got my first problem. What happened there? Oh, no. I'm using the, oh, here we go. All right, now we're all set.
Yeah, we're all set.
There's the picture, okay? That was when I was 30 years younger than I am now. Actually, Russ can see me, so it's not too bad. I'm the CEO of a company called Value Innovations. I'm a founder of iTransform, publisher of bEVCurrent. I'm not going to leave this slide up anymore because there's another one at the end. So if you want to capture this stuff because you think we might know something that would be useful to you, please feel free to contact us. So there are 30 slides in all that I'm going to share. I'm going to deliver basically 4 sections. The first one's going to be setting the stage. So putting all of this into context. There are going to be slides 4 through 10 on that. Then we'll stop and cover any of your questions if you have them at that point. Then we're going to go to the Bloomberg report and look at the autonomous vehicle leaders today. And that 12 through 17 are the slide numbers again. Again, we'll stop for questions. Who are the close followers? Some slides there, followed by questions, and then AI challenges and more questions. So there's 4 opportunities where we can literally take a timeout, take a breather, and try and ask your questions. I'm sure they'll be absolutely fabulous. So let's go to the first one, which is setting the stage. We're looking at the global auto industry. So we're talking about manufacturers, car dealers, tier 1 suppliers, and everybody who's associated with that. It's a huge, huge industry. And about 2 years ago, there were a group of us who were sitting down and asking ourselves the question, what is going on? What is impacting the global auto industry? And we spent a lot of time on this. We went through scenario planning and axes of certainty and uncertainty and all the rest of it. And we went through a magic moment where we realized that, in fact, the future has already been determined. It's just a question of when and how we get there. So I'm going to walk you through them very quickly. Imagine we sit right in the center of this circle here. And that's where we are today. So primarily it's the internal combustion engine that powers cars and trucks. And if we move up this transformation axis, going up there to the EV, I can't find here we go, the EV, the end state is with the electric vehicle. It isn't a question of if we're going to go there. We are. That is the end state. It's a question of how and when we get there. That's the key. The second one over is we're now going to look at how cars are sold. And I must admit, I don't know how you sell them in Australia, although Ross was indicating that apparently you do have dealerships. But in the US, we have car dealerships. But they're going away. We're going to be moving to this end state here called omni-channel retail. And that means that all the dealers are going to have to change the way they think about selling cars because it's going to be primarily online. The next one down, and this is impactful in a sense with autonomous vehicles, we're going to go from totally unconnected dumb cars to connected ones. The next one, which is going down to 6 o'clock, is we're starting from where we are today, where we go to a dealer and we buy a car, we own a car. We're going to transition to a world where we probably won't own the car. We're going to have some kind of sharing system, and there will be fleets of cars out there that we can choose from. Then this one over here at basically 11 o'clock, will we just think about cars, owning a car, or will we think about mobility as a service? There are all kinds of things that we can use. I know in Australia, you ride bicycles, you have buses, you have light rail and all the rest of it. Why do I want to just focus on a car? There are all kinds of ways I can get from A to B. And then the final one is at 7 o'clock high. That's going from driver to driverless. And I'm going to focus now just on driverless for the rest of this presentation. Let's get quickly to autonomous vehicle definitions. There are 6 in all. The Society of Automotive Engineers here have defined those. We start off with 0. That's no assistance at all. You'll remember the days when we had cruise control on cars, and that's all we had. And now we can buy cars where they'll parallel park for us. We now have L3 autonomous vehicles in service in the US today. I suspect you have them down in Australia too. If you, in fact, have Tesla S's and X's, they are equipped with, and we'll get into Tesla in a little while, but they have sensors and cameras on them now, and you can now operate at L3 with those cars. L4 and L5 is where I'm focused, and that is this. L4 is high level of automation. The driver can still take the wheel if they want to. It will work on all local roads and not all weather conditions. So L4, if you're talking about local roads and you know what the weather conditions are, you're essentially operating at L5 level. And that's starting to happen in the United States now, where people are looking at last mile deliveries of pizza and it's being done driverlessly. That's not happening yet, but it's going to be happening at the end of 2018. And we're going to see a lot of it in 2019. And then the big one, L5, this is full automation. There's no steering wheel. There's no pedals. And you can do this in all roads and all weather conditions. Who's in this space? Well, the answer is everybody. And I put up some names here of companies. Some you'll recognize, some you won't. But these are primary players in this AV space. There are automobile manufacturers. There are hardware providers. There are software providers. There are LiDAR companies. They're all on there. I'm not going to focus on any of these. I just wanted to give you the list so that if you want to go dig some more, you've got the list. And I understand from Russ that this is being recorded, so you're going to be able to go back and take a look at this. We have started publishing a weekly report called bEVCurrent. And we are basically using Twitter as the source of our information for this. We publish a one-week summary with the top 3 headlines and headlines 4 through 10 every week. And what we're looking at is what are the key headlines in those 6 transformation axes? What are they? And we publish those. The last one that we published was this last Saturday. So we go from Saturday to Saturday. So it's from June 3rd to 9th. And then we do a 3-month summary. We look at what happened between February and April through 2018. So here's an example of some of the things that we've seen, and these are all related to autonomous vehicles. And on February 12th, the U.S. Department of Transportation called for a meeting, March 1, in Washington, for a meeting between manufacturers, suppliers, and regulators to define a path forward for autonomous vehicles. The next one, Toyota set up a relationship with 2 Tier 1 suppliers in Japan, Aisin, Seiko, and Denso. They're investing $2.8 billion in autonomous vehicle development. As you know, this space is huge. The last number I think I saw was something like $80 billion is being invested in this space to date. And then the next one down, and this one is a nightmare. The Uber crash, if you remember, that took place on March 19th. It was in a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. And unfortunately, a woman was killed in a crosswalk by an Uber Volvo. I think it's the X90. But you can see what they said. The Uber death will set confidence back for years. And what we see in this this autonomous vehicle field is that a death is not good because the media takes a hold of it and it's headlines that somebody was killed on the road. And what they don't realize is that, yes, there are going to be some deaths, unfortunately, but the reason we're going to autonomous vehicles is the fact that, in fact, we will be far safer on the roads as a result, and less people will die. Let me try and put that into context. In Australia, through April 2018, there were 1,253 Aussies who were killed on your highways. In the United States, few more people here. NHTSA, that's our National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration, reported that road deaths was 37,461. That basically translates to about 100 people die a day in the United States on the road, and 94% of those incidences are through driver error. So if you can take a car you can drive to driverless and completely replace the driver, we're going to see road deaths go down dramatically. Bloomberg republished this fantastic report, and you're going to see a reference to that in a few more minutes here on the race to L4 and L5s. It was published May 7. Evanex, which is an organization that follows Tesla, they're in love with the car company, and you have to watch these folks. I have a great respect for Tesla, but there are a lot of things that they haven't done particularly well, but Evanex loves them. They think that Tesla's autopilot is way ahead of anything that Waymo is doing, and we'll get into that. But Waymo does have a couple of problems with their LiDAR systems. The first one is cost, and the second is poor weather conditions. And then finally, this was not very long ago, a couple of weeks ago, May 31, Waymo announced that they were going to team with FCA to add more Chrysler Pacifica hybrids to their fleet, 62,500, and they were going to add those to their fleet, and they would be fully operational in Phoenix and San Francisco in 2019. That'll start in 2018. So there is basically setting the stage. I don't know if there are any questions at this point, but if there are, I'm going to ask Ross if he can share with me, or Peter, what questions you have. What do we got at this point? Or are they just dumbfounded? Hello, can I hear anybody?
Yeah, how are you, Dick? It's Peter.
Hey, Peter, good to see you. I see you on the screen.
You can. Fantastic.
Yes.
I think the point about the data and the safety data is quite important.
Yes.
Because we are in, I suppose, the whole data privacy movement. We're seeing that people are opting in, or they need to opt in to have their data shared, and some people don't even want their gender shared. So we're seeing driver's licenses in Queensland. There's a move to not have gender on the driver's license. So from a safety perspective, you want to see that X amount of deaths have been reduced by gender or by time of day, or the age of the driver. So I think from my perspective is that consent is something that really has to happen, and to the granularity that helps us to understand that it's a safer option compared with current road statistics.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, that's why insurance companies are all over this, because they realize that their business is going to get hurt substantially by this.
Absolutely.
So they're looking for other ways to get into the business.
And then I guess the flow on from that is that we need to have a mechanism by which car manufacturing companies, governments and insurance companies can actually share data. So, a protocol, if you like, for sharing that sort of information around, or a payload that they all agree, this is how we're going to share information. So that's got to come first. And our government's actually working on that at the moment in Australia.
Okay.
Couple of good questions here for you, Dick.
Okay.
If the driverless car is implemented, will people still need to get a license? This is actually a good one. And how would that work? Yeah.
So I don't know the answer to that question, Ross, but I do know the following. You're probably going to have to go through some kind of training, but I'm not quite sure what the training is. It's like when you're selling a driverless car at an auto dealership, what certification do you have to go through to be able to do that and certify that, in fact, the person can get into the car and then move it? But the answer to your question, it's an excellent question to which I don't know the answer to. But yes, I mean, I got grandsons now. I know their kids will never know how to drive a car. Yeah,
especially Emmanuel. And what you know, you mentioned about some of those trust issues with the Uber, and you know that it kind of predicted that would happen due to media. But you know, what's happening to increase and nurture this trust?
It has to be education, Ross. It comes down to education and organizations who are proactive in this. I don't know what organizations you have down there. I do know you have a Department of Transportation. I would say that they have to take responsibility for training people on what this is.
Yeah.
We have NHTSA, we call it. They have to become far more effective in what they're doing in training. I don't see them doing anything. And I think auto dealerships and auto car companies have got to do it as well. I mean, at this particular point in time, when you go into an auto dealership in the United States and you ask a salesperson to explain to you forget about being an autonomous vehicle, getting them to explain what an electric vehicle is very difficult for them. So there has to be a much, much better focus on training and delivering great digital marketing. Digital marketing.
A full ecosystem approach too, isn't it? It's everyone involved in the current industry needs to understand the disruption, but understand obviously the positives and negatives of both of those.
Exactly.
Yeah, excellent. No, that's great. And
do you think we should move on to the next here?
Do you want to answer these couple of questions?
Sure. We're burning time.
Well, all right. What happens in the transportation industry in the future if we get driverless cars? You kind of touched on that one, didn't you?
The biggest single thing that we see is we will be making less cars and trucks.
Yeah. Okay.
We tried to predict the size of the lithium-ion battery business for electric vehicles in the year 2030. The reason we selected 2030 is that we think no major car company will sell a car with an internal combustion engine in it starting that year. So that means that you're going to need lithium-ion batteries for all those new cars sold. Well, worldwide today, that number's around 127 million units a year.
Jeez, lucky I bought those lithium stocks 6 months ago, eh?
Exactly. And it's going to drop to 100 million and maybe even less.
Yeah.
So we're going to see less cars and less trucks on the road because they're going to be better utilized.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we'll keep going, mate. I've got a few questions, but I think we'll wait. We'll keep you going on with your presentation.
All right, so here we are. If there's a single document that you should look at, if you're interested in this space, this is the one I recommend that you take a look at. It was published in May of this year by Bloomberg. It's packed with detail. It's one of the best reports that we've seen, and it's called Who's Winning the Self-Driving Car Race? And you can see the URL down there at the bottom of the slide. Again, you won't be able to write that down fast enough, but Ross has got all this information, and you'll be able to download this and access that report. So who's the leader? Well, unquestionably today, the leader is Waymo. Waymo, of course, was a company set up by Alphabet. It's now spun off as a separate organization, but it's still owned by Alphabet. You can see the estimated time of autonomy is 2018. They, in fact, do have driverless cabs operating in Phoenix, Arizona today. They're these Chrysler Pacificas. You can see that over here. This is what they look like. And they had just signed a deal with Jaguar to buy 20,000 of these guys. And this is the Jaguar I-Pace, and this is an electric vehicle. And it's going to be very interesting to see what they do in Europe. But we're going to get now to Waymo's plans in Europe. This is their new CEO. His name is Kravchuk. I wish I remember his first name, but I don't. But they intend to expand their operations, driverless operations now outside the United States and going into Europe. But it'll be mobility as a service again, but we don't know who they're going to do this with. Is it going to be Jaguar? Is it going to be SCA? Is it going to be somebody else? Will it be a local partner? Might it be one of the German companies? We don't know. So here's Fiat Chrysler Automotive Company. If you had to look at the companies who have done nothing in the area of EV development, these are the primary players. They have done nothing. Marchione, who is retiring at the end of this year, wants to make sure that his pension is as large as it possibly can be. So he's maximizing the number of dollars that he produces in profit this year. And so he's not been investing in electric vehicles. That's now started to change. They're making the change, but it's probably not going to be on his watch. Close followers. Number 2, General Motors. And Mary Barra is the CEO of this company, and she keeps, whenever she stands up, talks about, we are now investing in the future. We're going to zero-emission vehicles. We are committed to electric vehicles. We are committed to going to driverless. And they have an operating unit called Cruise. They're going to be starting to manufacture these bolts. This is a Chevrolet Bolt that you're looking at, which is an electric vehicle. They will be manufacturing those and putting them into service in 2019, and they will have no wheel and they will have no pedals. So here we're going to be looking at L4 driverless autonomous vehicles in operation on a limited basis with General Motors in 2019. Moving on to questions again, Ross. We got more questions, or are we just moving too quickly here?
Mate, we've got heaps, but I'll leave it up to you. Do you want to continue, or do you want me to ask a few?
No, let's ask some questions.
All right.
Hey, no, we need to get the audience involved here. I don't know it all.
Okay, here's a good one. Will road infrastructure support autonomous vehicles? And, what are the changes we'd have to look at to existing infrastructure?
What changes will we have to look at? You're asking the wrong guy, because when I've got a slide which looks at connectivity, bandwidth, and the amount of space you need for data storage. But the answer is huge. We're looking at exabytes of requirement for data storage. There's not one company on the face of the planet that has that amount of storage at this point. So it's going to be the amount of information that has to be stored and the speed with which the information is captured and collected, which is, I think we're going to have to be operating at much faster rates than we are right now. The amount of information that you're required to keep is just huge. So if I were more of an IT guy, I'd be able to give you a much better answer to the one that I've given you, but it's going to have to change dramatically because of the amount of information that's generated. It has to be captured.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are the legal implications at this stage of death, injuries by AVs, and for the liability of the driver, say software engineers, companies that employ them? I heard 12 months ago, one of the chip manufacturers put their hand up to take liability if there was an accident. Well, where's that sitting from
I think that, you're absolutely right. It's going to change, and where it's going to change to, and how it's going to get changed there, and who is going to be liable. Those are all questions that have to be answered. But at this particular point in time, when we have one of these deaths, and it happens, it doesn't happen on a regular basis, but the family members of that, the person who was killed or the people who were killed, sue the manufacturer. So in the case of Tesla, when they had that accident in California, where the guy was on autopilot but was not watching what was going on and went into a divide, a barrier in a highway, those relatives sued Tesla. And I think that's going to continue for quite some time until the automobile manufacturers and the hardware companies and the software companies work out what's the best way we can handle this. But we don't have the answers yet, that's for sure.
Yeah, excellent. All right, keep going, mate. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So a close follower, and you can see those three gorgeous cars there on the left. The red one is the Tesla S. The Tesla X is below it, and the Model 3 is on the right-hand side. The key point about Tesla is that they do not use LiDAR. And we're going to get into a comparison between LiDAR and cameras and sensors in a second here. They have, the Bloomberg report has estimated time of autonomy as 2020. I don't think that number's right. I think it's earlier than that. But they're in a unique position, much, much more significant and better position than Waymo. And I'll get into a statement of what that really means. But if you go onto the Tesla website and look up Autopilot 2.0, Autopilot 2.0 is the hardware system that they have put on their cars, the S, the X, and the Model 3, since the early part of 2016. So the Teslas that are 2016, 2017, 2018 have all the hardware they need on them in order to operate as an L4 or an L5 vehicle. So in 2.0, it doubles the number of active cameras from 4 to 8. It enables full driving in almost all circumstances, and what we will believe to be probably, they're estimating, Tesla, that the cars will be twice as good as the human average driver. You notice they stay away from accident reduction rate, death reduction rate. They don't get into that kind of stuff for obvious reasons. But it's designed to be able to conduct short and long distance trips. In other words, you're not locked into this small area where you have maps. It's much more encompassing than that. And for superchargers, and we'll get into that in a second, you'll be able to drive from the West Coast to the East Coast without ever touching the wheel and not even telling the car where to go to get more electricity. It knows where to go. And the supercharging stations are set up in such a way that it happens automatically. So the car knows which of the 4 or the 6 outlets that it needs to go to. It parks in the right place, and the robot literally links it up with the charging system. It's fantastic. The key point here is that installed base of Tesla electric vehicles in the U.S. today is over 150,000. And I'm sure most of the people on this call knows, Tesla can access all 150,000 cars. If they want to download information from all 150,000 cars tonight, they'll do that. So they have a huge database on which they can track what's been happening with these sensors and cameras on these cars. Waymo does not have that. We're talking about 100,000 cars max, which are equipped with LiDAR that Waymo is following. So what does this mean in terms of Autopilot 2.0? And they just announced a new software system, the 9.0, and we'll get into that in a second. All you'll need to do is to get in the car and tell it where to go. If you don't say anything, the car will look up your calendar and take you to the appointment that you got on your calendar. And if you don't tell it anything, it'll take you home. So it's now making decisions not only about driving, but where it's going to take you to. It's going to navigate through the urban streets. It's going to go through traffic lights, stop signs, all the rest of it, and it'll also work perfectly well on freeways. I was in a Tesla X sedan in San Diego 6 weeks ago, and we were using that car in autopilot mode. We were doing 65, 70 miles an hour. And my good friend who was driving the car said, I want to move to the left lane because we've got to get off at the next exit. What do I do? And the Tesla guy said, all you have to do is just put your indicator that you want to go left, and the car will move safely to the next lane. It did it perfectly. When you arrive at your destination, you literally get out of your car, and it knows you're now out of the car. And if it's not at home, it now will go park itself in a convenient spot. And all you need to do to bring your car back is tap on your iPhone, and your car will come pick you back up again. this is the key thing, and you can see how current we are, June 10th. So this was yesterday for me, 2 days ago for you. Tesla's next major software update is their version 9.0, which is now set for release in August of 2018. And it's going to start to include now the first full self-driving features that you're going to need on Autopilot 2.0 equipped vehicles to move to L4 and L5 ultimately. Let's give you a comparison between LiDAR and cameras and sensors. So Tesla's using the camera and sensors approach to life. LiDAR is being used by Waymo, GM, and all the other major manufacturers. There's a big item. Number one, consumer acceptance. AAA, the American Automobile Association, did a survey of their members. They have 50 million members, and they asked them a series of questions about their acceptance of driverless cars. And the bottom line is this: 16% of those people surveyed would feel comfortable in a driverless car. Or stated different, 84% feel unsafe. So we talked about this education issue earlier. It's a tremendous barrier that is going to have to be addressed and overcome. On the install base, Waymo has got more cars out there than anybody else that we're aware of at this point. It's around 600 cars. With their deal with FCA, with the purchase of the 62,500, they're going to be up to 100,000 in service in the U.S. By the end of 2019. In the Tesla case, that's the cameras and sensors approach. They've got over 150,000 vehicles out there now. There's no name for the LiDAR system that's used on the Waymo GM series. They call it LiDAR. Tesla calls it an enhanced autopilot. One of the reasons for the slow adoption rate that we see for LiDAR to go to L4 and L5 is the cost. Right now, the estimated cost to, in fact, put a LiDAR system on a regular car, whether it's an electric vehicle or powered with an internal combustion engine, is around $30,000 US dollars, not Australian dollars, US dollars. And it's going to go down, there's no question, but it's going to go down to around $10,000 over the next 2-3 years, which is still a huge premium to be paying for driverless. When Tesla owners bought their car, they elected for the option for to be able to upgrade to enhanced autopilot. If they paid it, they paid $5,000, and they'll have to pay another $1,000 when they download the software. But essentially, Tesla has already been paid for the hardware that's required for the autonomous vehicle application, i.e. going to L5. So we see a slow adoption rate for Waymo and GM. It's going to happen very, very quickly with Tesla. GM, as I said earlier, with GM Cruise, is hoping to deploy driverless vehicles in a pilot program that could launch next year in San Francisco. I expect, by the way, and there's another slide at the end here, my expectation is that Elon Musk is going to summon either a Tesla X or a Tesla S from New York City and have it come and pick him up in Los Angeles. And it will be full driverless. There won't be anybody in the car. The car will know where to go. It'll recharge itself. Once they do that, and I'm expecting that's going to be before the end of 2018, we're going to start to see things moving, I think, very quickly with Tesla. We're going to go back one. Russ, over to you. Questions?
Look, we do, but I think we might keep these till the end. They all seem fairly generic, not to some of the points you've been talking about. So if you're happy, mate, we might just wait till the end.
All right. Well, I'm now supposed to talk about AI. So here, this slide to me captures what AI is all about in this space. You've got data acquisition, data labeling, data management, and data storage. It's all huge. And it's all got to be interactive. It's all got to be saved. It requires an incredible amount of storage. That's where this exabyte statement comes from, and enormous bandwidth. In other words, you've got to be able to process this information very quickly. As much as you can do on car, the better. There was a paper published by Accenture. You see the bottom of it there. It's called The Race is On, and it was published in March of 2018. And I think it does a very good job at explaining what the AI challenges are, but they are significant. SAE International, so this is the Society of Automotive Engineers, specified 12 system capabilities to achieve L5. And the three most critical, here they are: object recognition and tracking. You've got to be able to detect pedestrians, lights, signs, buildings. Situation analyzers. So it's not only the stuff that's static, although the pedestrians are not. You've got to be able to deliver data features for the predictor system to make intelligent decisions. So it's not only seeing a stop sign or seeing a traffic signal change, it's anticipating things that are going to happen and making decisions as a result of that too. And to me, I look at that and say, well, I'm glad I'm not an IT guy, because I don't think I would want to address that enormous problem. Motion predictor, to capture pedestrian movements, hazardous weather conditions. So things that happen, this happens in Australia too. You have bad weather. There are things that can change in a second. A wind gust or something like that now moves a car or shifts a car from out of the lane it's in to the lane adjacent to you, and maybe even into your lane. If you're going driverless, you have got to be able to anticipate that and react to it before there's an accident. And so that's leading to out-of-control cars as well. Let me come up with my predictions at the end here. And I'm not quite sure how I can. Oh, here we go. I can move those guys out of the way. So let me give you my prognostication, or our prognostication that I transform for the headlines between now and 2023. That trip that I talked to you about with a Tesla S or a Tesla X coming from New York to, I'm assuming it's going to be San Francisco, California, we expect that to occur fourth quarter of this year. We expect, GM has already announced that GM Cruise will launch a fleet of Chevrolet Bolts, this is their electric vehicle, without a driving wheel, without pedals, offering a ride service sharing in the Bay Area in California. That's going to happen in the first half of 2019. We're going to be talking about L4 autonomous vehicle there. Tesla Motors is going to be offering L4 autonomy software to customers with Autopilot 2.0. We're estimating that's going to be 2020. So you will be able to operate your car locally, no hands on the wheel, no pedals, and no driver interruption. You'll be able to do that in 2020 in Teslas. Waymo and a partner is going to close a deal to sell L4 autonomous vehicles. Now, I'm talking about sell. I'm not talking about operating a fleet of ride-sharing vehicles under another label. I'm talking now about selling L4 autonomous vehicles to a fleet operator in the United States. I don't know who the fleet operators are that you have down in Australia, although I can probably guess them. You probably have Ryder down there and Penske and all the rest of it. But it could be a DHL, or it could be any number of companies who are in a position, they don't care about the premium they have to pay for the car. They just want to buy a lot of them and get them into the hands of their clients. We expect that's going to be by the year 2020. And here's my prediction at the bottom here, that Tesla will offer L5 autonomy software to new and existing customers in 2023. So it's not only going to be the cars that when you buy the car, you're now going to purchase with it. It's going to be back to those cars that were manufactured in 2016. They're going to be able to update that software to make them L5 autonomous vehicles in 2023. And you'll see I've got a plug down there for bEVCurrent at the end. We'll be tracking and reporting progress every week through bEVCurrent, checking to see what's going on in this transformation axis of going to driver to driverless.
Wow.
Ross, I'm back to questions again.
Mate, I will go into that, but I think with Peter here and some of that AI tech stuff. Peter, you got any thoughts, mate, in that space? You being the techie guy?
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, look, a lot of the work we're doing in AI now is about reducing the, I suppose, the manual overheads of, things like healthcare. It's actually all about automating the day-to-day nonsense that we, emailing each other back and forward, and I guess automating workflows. There's two levels of AI. There's the big brain, if you like, and some of this stuff we're talking about is really quite high tech. And then there's actually the sort of the engine room or the nano-like technology, which is sort of all that messaging backbone that's connecting people to services and that sort of thing. So all of that back end stuff is sort of like what you're not seeing, that, when you get insurance from an insurance provider, you might be ticking a consent box, which is actually sending something to the car manufacturer to release that information. There's a lot of that AI going on in the background, which is quite important. So I guess, when you look at AI, there is really that sort of mundane, repetitive back office AI, like you see Amazon with those robots that run around the floors. It's almost like that. And then you've got this kind of like glossy platinum style AI, which we're seeing today, which is, driverless cars, singularities, virtual reality, that sort of thing.
Great, awesome, thanks for that. And
Peter,
sorry,
Peter, do you have anybody doing with anything on road testing in Australia with L4 or L3?
We've got several programs at the moment. There's in Darwin, there's a tourist bus that operates in a high touristy area, which is basically manned by a driver. So It's got a steering wheel, and he simply takes them 100 meters at, crawling speed back and forward. But it's sort of like a token autonomous vehicle. It's not L4, L5. There's some testing in Outback New South Wales where they're actually testing object detection and avoidance. So specifically for kangaroos, it's a big problem in regional areas in Outback Australia. So there is a funded program going on there at the moment. There's another project in not far from where we are in Brisbane, in suburb of Ipswich, where they're actually testing, well, that one's actually all about data sharing. So it's to essentially investigate what data is needed to share between government insurance companies and car manufacturers. So that was a $20 million project to investigate data sharing requirements. I believe there's a few other programs now popping up. To my knowledge, that's about it.
Bus in Olympic Park, Robert said. There's a bus in Olympic Park that's doing it at the moment, which is great. Awesome, thanks. So just to touch on a couple of these questions,
yes.
A couple of good ones here. So what about the tyranny of distance concerns? So areas of disconnect, such as tunnels, areas out of mobile satellite cover. How will AI integrate, or how will the technology interoperate? In terms of back roads, tunnels, redundant networks, and the like.
That's a great question to which I haven't given an answer to, but I'm going to take a crack at it. That in fact, if I take the Tesla system, I think the Tesla is going to know that it's coming to the tunnel. It will know that. It's not dependent on communicating with anybody outside other than what's in the tunnel. I think it's going to be okay, but I'm going to defer to Peter. If Peter's still there, He's going to know the answer to that question. My guess is it's not going to be the end of the world. Peter, what do you think?
What was the question, sorry?
So the question was, if I've got an L5 autonomous vehicle and I'm going to go into a tunnel and I'm now not able to communicate with the outside world, what happens? And I said, I think you're going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah, well, look, there's a lot of the services we're seeing in AI now are in the cloud. But at the same time, we're seeing a hybrid sort of localized AI or a local processor that's able to make decisions without the cloud. So you're going to see these hybrid type technologies. I was in Hong Kong last week for a health robotics AI conference, and they showed essentially a mechanical hand. So it's being used for patients that have suffered a stroke and have lost their mobility. And there's even machine learning that actually monitors the data, the movements of the hand and the pressure. Now, all of that machine learning is actually processed locally without the cloud. So there is considerable compute available for localized devices. Now, NVIDIA is actually, when you mentioned about AI companies, NVIDIA is one of the biggest AI companies in the world, and they produce GPUs, So the localized capability for decision making is quite quite coming along. It's not all cloud.
Awesome.
Right, I put that list up there.
Yeah, thanks, Digan. I suppose, look, this question's come up before, and I'm glad people are starting to think about this, because it means our security message is starting to get through. Well done. So, let's talk data security, cyber security. Let's talk security. We talk about IoT devices. We're talking about all this data that Tesla has a hold of. They're obviously increasing their risk of being hacked potentially. What's the security discussion happening in this space?
So the answer to that question is I haven't got the slightest idea, but I do know that because of the number of vehicles that Tesla has out there, and they can access every single one of those vehicles. They've sold over 300,000 vehicles worldwide, and they can communicate with every single one of them, which means that presumably they're hackable, but they haven't been hacked. So, but I don't know what they have in place that gives them that capability, and I'm going to defer to Peter because he maybe knows the answer to that question. Peter.
Well, again, in Hong Kong last week, there's a significant amount of startup companies looking at blockchain technology. There was a startup that actually essentially pension plans using blockchain, vending machines. So there's a considerable amount of products and technologies based on blockchain. So I expect that that's going to continue and potentially be the driver behind what we're talking about here.
So let me add a comment about Tesla. It's not only that in this space, I don't have the technology background to be able to answer the question, but there's another key point about Tesla. They don't release a large amount of information. They'll talk about a number of different things. But when it comes down to answering the question that you've just asked me, I have high confidence, I'm going to say in the 75 to 80% range, that Tesla knows exactly what it's doing in this space, but is not going to announce to the world what it's doing. That's the way they operate. Peter, is that a fair comment?
Yeah, look, there's they own the data, so unless there's a data sharing agreement between them and governments, they're not going to volunteer their data.
Yeah, fair enough too. And look, I suppose you've got security, we've got the tech. And what about the ethical discussions? Where that's what it all comes down to, at the end of the day. How are they progressing around the ethical discussions to kind of implement, autonomous vehicles?
The answer to that question is that they are. We do not know what that is. And when it comes to Tesla, they're not going to share with us what that is. And my take is that Waymo is in exactly the same position. In other words, these developers and the big name companies are all very much aware of what the challenges are, but they're not making it clear to everybody how they're addressing them. You have to be on the inside track to be able to do it. And I'm going to make the following bold statement that because they don't know, they know what the end state is going to be. We're going to go from driver to driverless. But how we get there, when we get there, the challenges that they're going to address, they are not going to share those with us that they think puts them in a position where they can come up with unique solutions and deliver technology that nobody else can have. So it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. What comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, absolutely.
People, am I being fair with the answer to that question? The people are not that open about what's going on here.
Yeah, the unknown, and still a lot of this emerging technology. What about, here we go, someone's got this interests me, I might ride a bike. So what are they talking about? Autonomous motorbikes. I've seen a couple of drivers, they stand up on themselves, they won't fall over. Anything with other autonomous kinds of vehicles? I know trucks are out there as well.
Drones as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I heard on a radio station that a Japanese company has got now a drone umbrella. And they were talking about the battery life was only 20 minutes, which made no sense to me whatsoever. But I thought a drone umbrella was a fantastic idea. Just imagine with this canopy walking above you, it knows where you are and it just tracks you. You don't have to hold anything. It's fantastic. Yes, I mean, driverless bikes, driverless motorcycles. I tell you, the country that should be really focused on this, and I don't think they are. And if there's an Indian on the call, I apologize up front because I have immense respect for you guys. But the Indians should be into this. I mean, the largest population of motorcycles in the world is in India. And when you see 4 people on a motorcycle, it's incredible. They need to be really focused on developing driverless motorcycles.
Yeah, that's where the population. Yeah, definitely.
There are, now I'll get to road deaths. There are 1.3 million people killed on the roads in the world today. And I think this statement is true. Half of those are on motorcycles. Yeah. Or with motorcycles. They're death traps.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Look, Peter, did you have anything?
How many people? I got a question for you. How many people do we have left on the call? 3?
We had 74 today. It's a good effort, team. Good effort.
Yes, but how many people we have on now? They've all departed for the beach.
74, mate. Haven't moved. They're so engaged.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
You have to be kidding me. Okay.
Well done. Well done. But look, did you want to add anything else, Dick? Any other comments you'd like to make in regards to this?
I'm going to come back to this one right here. So when we put together a bEVCurrent, and we're basically trying to track what's happening, the changes in the 6 transformation axes, about 2 weeks ago, I became aware of a company in York, England, called Text Mining Solutions, AI. I mean, very apropos for the discussion we have today. And what we did this morning, Peter, Ross, I shared this with you this morning, that today we started a pilot project where we had input to, they call it Tweet Follower. They had input 220 organizations. These are the organizations that we follow on Twitter every day. And they're car companies, autonomous vehicle, hardware suppliers, software suppliers, tier 1 suppliers, and so on. And we also entered 90 hashtags. So hashtag BEV, hashtag electric vehicle, hashtag autonomous vehicle, and so 90 of those. And Steve Brewer, who's the owner of this company, it's called Text Mining Solutions, input this data this morning in the United Kingdom. And when he sent me his email, so he's just been up and running for a few hours, shared with me that the average number of tweets being downloaded per minute was 370, and that at that time he was at 88,000. That's the count. And what we're going to do at tomorrow is to take a look at what we've got, refine what we're doing, and then start doing word analysis on everything that we've downloaded and compare it with the outputs that we're sharing with people in bEVCurrent. So we are now, because of the massive amounts of information that are literally being made available every second of the day, we have been forced to get into this world of AI just to massage the data that's out there and make meaningful decisions about what's going on. It's impossible for an individual or a company to keep track of all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Dick, mate, excellent presentation. Absolutely appreciate your time. Peter, thank you so much for connecting us and the members with Dick and organising today's webinar. Really appreciate your efforts there, Peter. And Dick, thank you so much, mate. I'll send a copy of your presentation out and a link, as we said. And I really appreciate all your input today and for giving us your time. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. And Ross, what I'll do is talk, because I played with the presentation, I'll send you the latest version. Do you want that? Do you want me to put that on www.seg.com so you can download the PowerPoint deck as opposed to the PDF file?
Mate, if you've got a link, I can just put that in the email and anyone can download it if they like, but whatever you prefer.
Okay, all right. Okay, no, that sounds good. So I know it's midday for you there right now, but
no rush.
Wine to celebrate the evening, but I'll do that first thing in the morning my time.
Not a problem. And I've got a lot of thank yous coming through and everyone really appreciates it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks a lot. Now, when I shared with you that I was at the Oval, actually, I think it was Lord's, and this was after a 50-year drought when England was playing in Australia in the fifth test of the Ashes, okay? And you guys lost. I forget. I've got a picture of the ball being just about to be caught by the slip who caught it. I don't even know what it was, but it was 50 years. It took 50 years for us to win the Ashes back in the UK. It was unbelievable. You guys are pretty good. You guys are pretty good at that.
Doesn't surprise me, mate. That's okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Dick. Have a good day, mate. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.